League of Legends, the game known for many things, whether it's catchy music, high quality animations or well written lore. But among the players, it's especially known for its toxic garbage community. And sadly, that's because it's mostly true. Honestly, how many times one of your teammates went AFK or pure inting mode just because you were not there when they died 1v1? But why? Why is it so easy to make someone tilt in this game? Or better yet, why do people tend to flame Riot so often for almost everything they do with the game? In this video I'm going to talk about how us, the players, do not value League as it is, and how the big majority of people playing this game is probably spoiled. The gaming industry is a very extensive variety of games with different genres and communities, from simulators to arcades to competitive games. It is undeniable that the competitive ones were always the mainstream. Although they are played by much more players, and some even hold for a very long time, they all have their own drawbacks. Some games struggle with cheaters.
Stop shooting me! You motherfucker! Ah, what? They're mid. Mid. And all mid. Ah! Why did I reload? What the fuck? I'm stupid, dude!
Some contain unpleasing pay-to-win mechanics,
but it's pretty ridiculous when spending £50 on a video game will not get you any of the really desired content. £50?
I spent $10,000 and got nothing! Yes, dude! How are we gonna make money if we don't force everybody to spam premium ammo and buy premium tanks and buy fucking premium account? Yay, we're greedy we're gaming. Hooray!
Others have problems with their own system.
And we've got the slipstream of the guy ahead. Now we're going to the second chicane, okay, that's at Monza. So we brake just before the cones because our tyres are still cold. However, the Spaniard in front of us does not do that. He hits us off slightly and we get a 2-second penalty.
Collision, so I mean I get a penalty for that, so I mean, okay, whatever, there it is. Thank you, stewards. And then Max Verstappen decides, you know what, I've had enough, I'm going to drive the wrong way down the track. This is just quintessential F1 multiplayer experience.
Brakes way too late. Way too late. Smashes into the side of me. Takes that guy out as well. Now this is what really pissed me off. He's done that. Where's his penalty? Where is his penalty?
Simply put, if you look at all the games that are out there, you'll find out that each game actually struggles with something. And League is no exception. For example, there are some bugs that make the game unpleasing and sometimes even unplayable. Some even last for almost, well, practically forever, which yes, that is quite annoying and I hate it sometimes. Maybe they could do a little better when it comes to those things. On the other hand, we should understand that League is a very old game built on an outdated code, which makes me think that coders at Riot are 200 IQ gods and lazy sloths at the same time. What do I mean by that is that it certainly makes coding in such a mess a really difficult task to do, but they do not rewrite the code because they are simply lazy. Okay, let's be a bit more real for now. They are not lazy. Or maybe they are, I don't know. But let's say rewriting the code is quite expensive thing to do. Now you are probably like,
yeah, and what? Should be no problem for them. They are a multi-billion company with lots of experience.
which yes, that is very true. But we have to first realize that all the projects they are working on cost insane amount of money as well. And I bet there is a lot more of them than we actually know about. So Riot hires some 200 IQ gods that can do something out of all that mess and pay them a bit more rather than hiring regular coders would probably have big problem working with such a code, so they would have to rewrite it all over again. And since the code is extremely complicated, it's almost impossible to avoid bugs. But there is still one question. What about the client? That doesn't have to do anything with the game client, right? Well, besides the fact that you choose there your champion, runes and skin before the match starts, yes, the client is basically a separate program from an actual game client. Its only purpose is to give information. That's it. Alright then, why it has so many bugs? Actually, maybe even more bugs than the game. Well, the thing is I don't know. And to be honest, it doesn't make any sense at all. The relevant client is not so old. In fact, it was made in 2016. Back then Riot already had years of experience. What is even more interesting and funny is that the older players state that the client that was used before this one had less bugs. Quite an irony, isn't it? So I really don't understand. It simply shouldn't be like that at all. But who knows, maybe I was right. Maybe routers are lazy. So in a nutshell, Riot has enough money for better game client, but they simply invest them as much as they can into other projects, which bring them more players. When it comes to client though, sadly that is a mystery for us. At least they are finally slowly fixing it. But at the end of the day, who the f cares if the client is bad or not? You are going to play the game anyway.
I'm fucking addicted! So I can't quit!
Oh, and keep in mind that these were all just my own speculations. I do not work at Riot, I don't know anybody who works at Riot. Everything I just said is just my own knowledge and what I managed to find on the internet. League balance. We all know it. 200-year champions, pointless buffs and nerfs, and weird new features. This is probably the most spicy topic about League. I'm pretty sure many people will have an urge to kill me after this statement, but I think League's balance is actually okay. Okay, before you dislike the video and type a comment about how dumb and stupid I am, please let me explain real quick, okay? Of course, there are many things I disagree with, such as Viego, Akshan or Kentexol. Honestly, who designed this? Like, who the hell thought that it would be cool if every champion was able to get better science passive? It's true they sometimes release a bit too strong or a bit too weak champion, but it always gets fixed. Well, usually. And it's also true that they sometimes say something that doesn't make sense.
Would it be good to have rank 3 revive on Aatrox ult? That's actually really interesting. Imagine Aatrox could get his revive back once he got to rank 3. I think that might be kind of bad though, because you learn to play against Aatrox one way the entire game, and then it fundamentally changes when you get to rank 3.
So?
Balancing is a very difficult task, and I don't wanna talk about it more, because that is own complicated topic for maybe future video. I will just say that if you like to complain about how OP some champions are, you better check other games like CSGO, where Valve for some reason thought that buying a pocket AVP for 800 bucks is a good idea, or World of Tanks, which makes League literally look like a heaven. Now I will try to quickly explain you how this game works. If you don't care about this part, you can simply skip it at the timestamp you see on your screen, but I 100% recommend you to watch it, because if you think that League is an unbalanced game, then oh boy, you're just about to find out how a terribly balanced game looks like. Firstly, in order to play ranked games, you must research at least one tier 10 weekly. This process might be very frustrating and very time consuming. Well, it might not be if you have the money, and that's because the game is pretty much pay to win. But if you decide to play for free, it could take you up to 400 hours to get your first tier 10. After you get the vehicle of your dreams, you still have many other factors that you will lack of. For example builds, growth perks, but most importantly, you will need more tier 10s. And that's because you will have only one single tank to play ranks with, and after it gets destroyed in battle, you need to wait for it to return. Grinding other tier 10 should not be so time consuming anymore though, because you will finally have some skills and credits. However, it might be still very frustrating because of the game's balance and research system. Basically, the whole game's balance is primarily focused around pay to win mechanics. When you buy a new tank, you get it with modules that are mostly complete shit with some exceptions. This means you will have to sometimes waste like 6 to 12 hours to get all the modules that will make your tank reach its full potential. However, if you have the money for premium account, this process should be about 150% faster, and if you are good enough, it could be even up to 400% faster. But yeah, you have to be good enough with like 60% or so win rate. But that's not all. There are also premium tanks that are sometimes significantly better than their researchable counterparts. Playing against these tanks is unfair and very annoying. Probably the worst thing about them is you can buy them right away you jump into your garage for the first time. Luckily, the maximum tier you can purchase is 8, but that still means you can play with the big boys as a complete noob who has absolutely zero knowledge about the game and ruin other people's lives by simply existing. And that's still not all. There is other premium stuff like consumable shells, exchange of credits and experience, and yada yada yada. Basically, if you play with your credit card, it should take you roughly 50 hours to get your first tier 10 vehicle. And that is a massive difference. Now let's get back to ranked stuff. In this game, certain tanks had to be banned from the ranked mode in order to keep the balance. I'm not joking, it's a real thing. Do you remember how OP Akali's rework was? Well, imagine that instead of nerfing her, Riot would rather permanently ban her from ranked games and never ever touch her again. One might say there is a fair reason behind it, and that is all those vehicles are reward vehicles. Some of them are okay, some of them are weak, and some of them are extremely broken. Those that are broken, Wargaming refused to nerf. They say they wouldn't nerf them because they were difficult to obtain, so they rather ban them from ranked, which is true, but that doesn't change the fact you still have to face them in public games. Strongholds and clan battles look like this for a very long time now. Also, for some reason there is one researchable vehicle that is basically as strong as the reward vehicles, but they refuse to nerf it. Why? Well, I don't know. Oh, and I still roughly talked about only 1/3 of the problems this game has in the simplest way I could. It gets way deeper and complicated. I hope you understand what is my point, because in nowadays people never really admit when they fail. Huge majority of players, instead of complimenting their enemy for good outplay or admitting they failed, rather type thousands of lines essay about how the fuck opponents matter because their champion is simply broken and how their jungler is gay for not helping them while they are not able to maintain freeze for at least 2 waves. Yes, I alone sometimes complain about the game being unbalanced, but I can assure you that it's mostly just my own ego protecting itself, which is what many people do, but they never admit it. They rather open up the Twitter or Reddit and make memes about how Riot should be nerf ASOL because they just got one shot by 2 and 3 set as 12 and 0 ADC while literally fighting him at a close distance. Samira players. Just wake the fuck up, guys. It's not Riot's fault that you've just lost your lane. It's your ego being afraid to say, I suck, I don't deserve diamond, I shall work hard, set up one learning objective, watch my replays, analyze every single move of the first 8 minutes, close the replay, understand the fundamentals, and try to use the newly learned knowledge in the next game. Yay. Or just be hardstuck like me because I'm lazy to do that. So next time when you're about to complain about league balance, just don't. Thank you. Another thing I would like to talk about is how Riot design champions. Now, I don't mean their kits, but characters as who they are. People complain that recent champions are all sexy humanoids with a lack of clothing, and as we all know, that's nothing but true. It tilts me as well that all we ever get is just some shirtless simp afraid of the sun. And when we actually get some monster champion, it's a deer that makes me question my sexuality. And no, I'm not counting Vex as the monster champion, since she's just some edgy yordle. Nothing really monsters. Same goes for Yumi. In the end, she's just a cat on the flying book. That's it. Yet Riot still somehow count these champions as monster champions. And when it comes to Belveth, well, yeah, she is a little bit of a relief, but when it comes to her character identity, not even Riot know what she is supposed to be. I think it's safe to say she could be considered as monster champion, but if that's true, then why the hell is her icon this and not this? And why did they decide to make her body look so curvy? However, we must understand that skins are the only income for Riot Games, and if they want more and more money, they have to release more and more sexy champions that people would play. In the end, League is Riot's biggest income, and 2 years ago it actually used to be their only income. If we want Riot to push themselves in areas like animated shows, music, and in the future maybe even movies, we must accept the fact that from now on, we will probably very rarely get champion with some horror theme. Although, sometimes horror theme doesn't have to appear so horror at the first sight. Do you remember when I said at the beginning of the video that all the competitive games have problems with something? Do you know what was my point? My point was that no matter what you play, you will be never truly satisfied. And as I showed you, this applies to League as well. League is extremely frustrating game. However, I always felt like this game is quite different from the others. Sure, it's not perfect, but if you compare it with other games, I think Riot does the best job out there. Just look at Valve for example. How long are the cheaters the main problem in CSGO? How long do people want 128 tick servers and Source 2 engine? Oh hey, the franchise celebrated 20-year anniversary. And what did the players get? I'm sure it must have been something very special. Well, it's simple. Another case. Okay, did the players at least get a few of them for free? No. Did the case contain at least some very unique special skins? No. Plus, these guys killed an entire game just because they wanted. So, yeah. Right, so let's check other game devs. For example, Blizzard. What could go wrong with Oh. Oh gosh. Oh dear.
I
Oh
think at this
no.
point it's safe to say Activision Blizzard is the most evil video game company ever.
Okay, what about EA? Do we even need to continue? So what's the whole point of this video? Well, the point of this video is that the players simply do not value what Riot gives us as they should. There are many people that say all they care about is money. How can you say something like that after everything they've done for us? I mean, look at all the cinematics, music and lore. No other game has so much of it as League does. Again, I'm gonna repeat myself for like 4 times in this video. There are many things that suck. I 100% agree with that statement. Maybe they sometimes say complete nonsense. Maybe they sometimes introduce something that players do not like at all. Maybe they make skins for specific champions mostly. But compared to how other companies treat their player bases, Riot is absolutely dominating in my eyes. They try to listen, they try to improve, and they are not afraid to admit when they actually fail, which is a big plus. Just think about it guys. This is the company which is all of the income thanks to League of Legends. They all managed to do this just by making a single, completely free-to-play MOBA. All of this, an extremely extensive lore with all the kinds of stories. And I mean like all the kinds of stories. An animated series with top rating, hundreds of its own music tracks, and many other unspoken stuff. Again, thanks to a free-to-play game. Completely free-to-play game. Now, I'm not convincing you that you should stop complaining about things you don't agree with. No, actually complaining is very important for the game to develop. I'm just trying to say that maybe you could be a little bit less toxic on Riot when you don't like something or when the things don't go as they planned. Because remember, there is a big difference between brief criticism and nonsense flaming. And don't worry, I'm fully aware this video is not going to change anything. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on this with at least very few people that are going to watch this video. Thanks for watching and maybe see you later.